New
Awesome.
episode, Brews and BizDev. Today's illustrious guest, Mr. Matt Carlucci. Yay! Yes, and ready to crack into the brew of the day is Liquid Lollipop by Froth Brewery. It's very good looking.
It's I have more of these cans on my shelf than I care to admit. Which flavor did you get? Because they're always different. They're always changing.
He said they had two when I walked in
Mhm.
there, and they weren't actually open, but he sold me some beer anyway today.
Awesome.
I've got the mango blackcurrant lemonade.
Oh, I have mango, goldenberry, strawberry.
Wow, that wasn't even one of my options.
Wait till you try a toasted marshmallow one. It'll change your life.
Okay, good.
Not necessarily for the better.
Message you as I was standing there. I'm like, which one? I don't know. I don't know which one to get. All right, so I'm going to crack this open.
No. Nastrovia, as they say over in Eastern Europe and other parts of Cheektowaga.
Cheers. Woo. All right.
You got yourself a 6% alcohol fruited sour right there, man.
Yeah, 6.5. That's nice.
6.5. That's right. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yes.
It's important to keep that number up.
It's like a smoothie, only could have dire consequences instead of nutritional value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except it's got 50% more beer than your average beer.
That's right.
Cool. So let's talk about that first. So you had the option, what beer, and then this is the one you went with. Obviously, it's very tasty, so that's going to be a reason. But why else? What had you choose this beer for this conversation?
Big fan of local everything. To be honest, if I can get it locally, especially from food and drink, I'm going to do it. I don't. It's not that I've never eaten at the Olive Garden or something, but I'm Italian, so if we eat at the Olive Garden, we're breaking some kind of rule, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's you're like treasonous.
Yeah, it's like against my birthright. But so I really like shopping local. Froth has been killing it on a few different fronts. Number one, their design game is just amazing. These cans are just gorgeous. I love the cans. I have a couple of others up there on the shelf right now, and it's really I have a shelf of all the beers that I've been drinking. Oh yeah, my green screen is making.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know if you can see that, but it's also seeing right through you. This is really an incredibly deep moment.
So imagine if you were if you see this at home, those parts that you can't see, those are green.
Yeah. Also for you at home, Matt's not really sitting in David Axelrod's apartment.
No, it is. I am.
Or Bobby.
Bobby
David
Axelrod
is a baseball player, I believe. Bobby Axelrod is from Billions.
Yes, where I'm actually in my home video studio.
Woo!
Not nearly as exciting. But I like to pretend like I'm in like a cool, bohemian West Side kind of place, or but anyway, so people that skip through this are gonna be really confused.
Yes, which would be most people out of all the ones that see it. They will be skipping.
So the design, number one, love the fact that it's local. Like I said too, it's also real. I'm not like. I don't get IPAs. I don't get it. It's just too much something. It gives me a headache. I love that IPAs are a thing, and I love it used to be like an IPA was a type of beer. Now like IPA is its own thing, and there's different types of IPA. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fruity, it's sour, it's summery, kind of celebrating a summer feel that we had a 90-degree day this week. Followed by like a 60-degree day, but
yes.
And that's why, and I think, like I said, Froth is doing really great stuff locally. I mean, if you've waited when they do one of these Liquid Lollipop releases on a Sunday, there's 100 people in line, mostly because they have to social distance and it has to be, 6 feet apart. But
right.
It
looks cool. It looks cool for businesses though to have those lines.
So like, for example, I went and I drove to Military and at Military Avenue or Military Road in Kenmore on Mother's Day to get these. So my wife gave me that blessing. So like she knows how important this shit is to me. Oh, can I swear? I just swore. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm going to do that a few times before we're done. And that's good because when you started to say the sentence and my wife gave me, I was going to be like, oh, this is going to be rough. Like,
we haven't. halfway through this, that we may go that direction. We'll see
the
what
real
happens.
story comes out. Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool connections because, and I think we want to talk a little bit about, relationships, building relationships, relationship-based sales, and Froth is a fun connection. I mean, we're in a small area here, so none of this is like, holy shit, I can't imagine there's a connection here between all these different, there's not a lot of people. But Froth, just like when I was looking at your LinkedIn and kind of like looking at the places you've been volunteering in, like every single one, right, there's this connection, like, oh, Western New York Independent Living Center, like Doug Uziak, I dated his daughter Madeline for like a year and a half or 2 years when I was younger, and so met Doug, yes, in a different lifetime, different lifetime altogether for all of us. Rest assured. Though I do know her husband now and all that, right? So small town there, and of course they're located right around the corner.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And the Froth. We did a networking event out there for one of my ProNet meetings for the Amherst Chamber, partly because one of the owners is engaged to someone who works at the Chamber, Olivia, who I work with quite a bit for all the stuff that we do there. So we've done events there. There are some stories I'm not going to tell on this podcast. It started at Froth at business events and then went into a different direction down Hurdle until the wee hours. And but yeah, that's one of those connections. You said Froth, and I was like, this is perfect because also I know their stuff can be dangerous. They had you wouldn't probably have had this because I think it was a triple IPA, but it was something called Duffel Bags of Green.
I know, I've seen it. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek references to a certain subculture in beers these days, and Froth is definitely on board with the with the trend.
Many people are connoisseurs in both departments, and they both have similar benefits. But that beer, and I got to say, I've had a little bit since because I went back there for a couple meetings. But it was so delicious. I mean, it slaughtered us, right? There's a started working, and Olivia was there. I should say this stuff in public. And it's so delicious. There was for a triple. True, there wasn't. I was not picking up, at least at that point, the booziness that you usually get when something is redone that many times. And so we're just killing it, and then the story ends in blackouts in all departments. I'm pretty sure everyone gets blacked out at the end, but dangerously good beer in that way. And so when you said Froth, I'm like, I'm in.
And it's not just if their cans were cool and that was kind of all they had going for them, it would be like, they have cool cans. I have some cool cans up there from things that I had that are gross. At least, I'm not going to say who they are, of course, because I don't want to ever put anybody down like that. But, honestly, they make a good product. And the fact that they're constantly innovating, not unlike Community Beer Works, I have great friends there. I mean, all of them really. All the local breweries are always kind of innovating and coming up with new stuff. Every week there's another version of an IPA. So I'm like, good for you guys. I'll never drink it. But, it's cool that they're constantly innovating and updating their sort of repertoire, and things sort of become exclusive, right? They go away. You can maybe never get them again. They have like different versions of the Liquid Lollipop, which disappear. And that's what's cool. If you're constantly innovating and constantly being new and unique and being fun at the same time, that's kind of what makes them sort of awesome. It's almost the exclusivity that makes me willing to pay a couple of dollars for it because, and probably go through that much money, if not more, in gas, just getting there in my giant V8 gas guzzler compensation mobile. So, but anyway, yeah,
it's not cheap. It's not the cheapest beer I've ever encountered. It's not the most expensive, but it's not inexpensive.
But it's like, it's 16-ounce can, so you're getting about 1.5 times what you would get in a regular can of beer, maybe just one in, I guess, whatever, 4 nights.
Yeah, it does equate to 2 beers by the time you add the size and then the extra proofage.
Exactly.
And it is, this is delicious. And the sour, I'm picking up the sour quite a bit in the back too. Very, very lemony, that sour.
And it's really pretty in a can. It looks really, I'm sorry, in a glass. If you pour it in a glass, it looks really pretty. It's already in a receptacle or whatever you want to call it. So.
Yeah, what is it? Looks like this one looks like a light red.
Depending on what berries in it. When they have the golden strawberry or the golden berry, it has like a sort of a goldish kind of pink almost hue to it. It's really cool. I like just looking at it.
Yeah, and their brew guy is like an evil genius type over there. We
Yep.
did a little mini tour, and he was talking stuff.
Goggles and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
he lost me after a while, but clearly I was like, yeah, no, I bet what the beer they churn out is going to be good.
Yeah.
And in that location, I've gone in there at times and been stunned by how many people there were, because it wasn't even an on time. Like, there was just loaded at different times that I was surprised by. Obviously, we live in a slightly different era at the moment. You're not going to fill any buildings with people, but
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad to hear that they've got those lines. I'm glad to hear they got the lines going out the door, because that means you're doing well, and marketing wise, that is also a good thing, because then people look up like, oh crap, what's going on over there? Like I did for Lake Effect ice cream like a couple weeks ago, because there's lines going out around the block on Hurdle, and I thought, what the hell? Like, I didn't even think it was open yet, and they had run some special, right? Like, it was like a mystery box I think they were doing. And so they there, and then people like lined up to come pick them up for blocks, and then people like me look up that stuff online, and you end up with more customers.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly that. I mean, a line, people, it's a good problem to have. Nothing looks more. What is it? What's the old phrase? It's so busy nobody goes there anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait a minute. I think that's an oxymoron. And I think it's a. Oh God, who's the Yogi Berra? It's a Yogi Berra thing, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think everybody's like, oh my gosh, there's a huge line. I got to get in that line. Mm-hmm. Queuing is not something us Americans do very well. No. But if you're willing to queue somewhere, it must be good. So. Yeah.
There's something to it for sure. Cool. So let's get into sales. We're like an hour in already. Just kidding. And we haven't really even done an intro yet. So why don't you just give us here's who I am, here's who I'm working with, and here's what we're doing.
Sure. So my name is Matt Carlucci. For those of you who don't know me, I am a business development executive, also known as a sales guy, for a company called Employer Services Corporation. We do outsource human resources, benefits, and payroll, and that's for small to medium-sized businesses. And we kind of take on and assist in the HR functions of your business. And what we really, what sort of sets us apart from a lot of other companies that do that same thing is that we have a local touch and a real personal touch and a customer service based approach. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm looking for, because I spent 18 years previous to this job in the hospitality industry. The hospitality business is where I kind of came up. Mm-hmm. I spent pretty much half my life up until I took this new job in hospitality, in restaurants, in hotels, in consultant firms that worked in the hospitality industry. So I did a lot of that. I'm sort of hospitality by nature. It's sort of in my blood. My mother worked in customer service and hospitality before me. Her mother did. It's just kind of, it's sort of in my blood. And it's one of those things that if I could choose what I would do for a living, it would be sort of serve. If only I could find a way to get paid just to serve. Other than, of course, being an actual server, it's sort of my passion. It really is. And that's why sales in a relationship-based model kind of works really well for me. I'm not a cold caller. I don't think I even can cold call. I can't knock doors.
Have you ever tried?
I sold Kirby vacuums for about 10 minutes. And I really thought I could do it, because somebody said to me, oh, you're a natural born salesman. And I said, awesome. They're like, you should sell Kirby vacuums. And I'm like, oh my God, nobody's ever complimented me like that before. You must know what you're talking about. So I ended up, I did the demonstration. It was rainbow vacuums, not Kirby vacuums. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Kirby
less
vacuums
of a cliche, but still good.
Exactly. If we want to edit it so it sounds better and say it was Kirby, that's great too. But so I sold these rainbow vacuums where I showed up in this office, and they dumped a bunch of dirt on the ground and they sucked it up, and they said, "This is how you get people to buy a vacuum." I'm like, "Don't all vacuums just suck dirt up off the ground?" But look, we have water in ours. I'm like, "Oh, great, that's awesome." Went to one. I set up one appointment from a cold call. They actually, while I was sitting there, kind of, I don't want to say pressure you, but ask you to call 5 friends. And so I called 5 people. This is like very early on in the age of cell phones. So it cost me probably $30 to make those 5 phone calls.
Yeah, what year roughly are we talking here?
I think I'm going to say it was probably 2001. Because I was still in college, but I was also So I was waiting tables and stuff. I was bartending and all that stuff at the time.
Yep.
So I was actually technically, still working in hospitality.
Mhm.
And I was like, let me test this whole sales thing out. I didn't realize that sales wasn't pouring dirt on people's floors. So I called a cousin of mine that I hadn't talked to in a very long time, hoping he wouldn't answer the phone, and he did. And I read the script, and he said, "All right, come on over." I went over to his house with my trainer. They made a mess. They cleaned up the mess, and then they tried to get him to buy right then and there. And I was so embarrassed, and I was ashamed. And it was my family member, and I was like, I can't do this. So I remember going back into the office and like handing them off over my little, like, it wasn't an apron. It was like a smock almost. And like kind of hanging it up and just saying, you know what, I think I'm going to go ahead and try doing something I'm more comfortable with. And within about 6 months of that, I was working in the Millennium Hotel, which at the time was still the Sheraton. And I was working there, and the director of sales said, you're great with the customers. You understand the systems. You know everything there is to know about the product, which is the hotel. We want to give you a shot in the sales office as sort of a junior salesperson without actually that title. And I remember negotiating my salary, and I'm not going to tell you the number that I asked for, but it was so low that my boss, Russ Papia, love the guy, still works in the hotel industry. He looks at me and he says, "We're going to give you more than that." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I remember going home and telling my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, I said to her, "I asked for this, but they offered me this." She's like, "Well, why the hell did you ask for that?"
Exactly.
She's like, that's not even gonna pay your car payment. So I was nervous, but I was excited. And honestly, I've been a sales guy more or less ever since, without actually being that, I haven't sold vacuums literally or metaphorically since. And I think I learned how to do relationship-based sales then. Working under Russ was a mentor of mine and still is, and really knew exactly how to. When you're asking somebody for the kind of money that it takes to book a convention or a block of hotel rooms or a banquet, a wedding, an event, you can't just say here's the product and here's how much it costs.
Yeah.
And I learned from there, and that's kind of how I've operated ever since.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a great industry and position in that industry to learn that, right? Because there are some other positions where you're looking to push something and turn it over quick. And so, yeah, the large room, the blocks, like that kind of stuff, like that's a good angle. Rainbow, just FYI, connections wise, we had that in my house in like Gasport when I was a kid, but that was that made more sense for Rainbow because that was in like the early 80s.
Sure.
So amazing that in 2001 they're still doing the door-to-door call your fucking family members so we can harass them and everyone will hate you and then you'll fail as a salesperson, but the company makes out fine, right? Like that's literally the business model, just like it is in insurance and pretty much everywhere else. AXA advisors, sorry, I call them out by name because they're just kind of horrible. What they're trying to do is horrible, and then the people they bring through that do it are horrible because it's a churn. It's a come in, give us your list. You call your friends and people that trust you. We'll break their trust by pitching them, and then you'll quit at this.
Sure,
we'll be fine.
Right, and honestly, I think that if the business model is broken, then it's too late. Yeah. You can have bad salespeople. You can have people that don't operate by the ethics and standards of an organization. And, I think even an organization like AXA probably doesn't say be a douche. No. But when you're trying to recruit, when you have your own office and you're trying to recruit junior salespeople or whatever they call it, sort of a freshman salesperson or whatever, there's a tendency just to grab whatever you can and hopefully that, you cast a wide net. But honestly, I think it's more of it's a product of the world we're living now, where everything is very instant gratification. Yeah. Relationships aren't a thing anymore. People are coming up now and starting jobs now where literally the first thing they do is scour LinkedIn and start setting automated messages. And that has a place if that automated message just is the handshake that leads to a conversation that leads to a relationship. I think the problem that people have now in being in a position of a decision maker, or the position of somebody who has buying power, is that you don't know really who you're buying things from anymore. You might know what the product is. You might have all the specs in the world on it. But when you're buying a service, for example, like I provide, or even actually like you provide, you need more than just technical specs. It's not medical devices. A pacemaker is going to work because the FDA approved it and whatever, and then it keeps you alive. But in some ways the firm that you're in, and in a lot of ways the firm that I'm in can be a commodity. And when you break it down to its simplest parts, we all kind of do in our industry and your industry do the same thing, but it's how it feels when you're doing that same thing that makes a difference. And the sales process is not really so much a sales process as it is sort of almost a demo of what it's going to be like, to the experience of being a customer in that organization. There are competitors of mine, which I won't call out by name, by the way. But
Axe is not a competitor.
But they know who I know. I'm not talking about them.
Okay.
But there's competitors of mine that really their job is to get a contract signed and disappear and move on to the next one. I have clients of mine that since day one of talking to them and telling them about what I am and getting to know what I do and hanging out with them, that I still got, get the signature in November, but here it is, June, almost July, or whenever this is released today.
It'll be soon.
We'll have the date pop up right underneath.
I think, it'll be, today is, sometime in June.
Superimpose a newspaper at the top of me. Let's pretend like I'm holding it up.
Then you can see through it because it's green.
Right. But those people, that's right. So the people that we're talking about that I've been talking to are still friends, and everybody has my cell phone number, and we text, and we have. My organization has a relationship manager that kind of follows up with people, but I'm the guy that got you into this place where you're spending money on a weekly basis. I can't just let you go. Right. And I think that's the thing. Like, I actually have somebody who's a friend of mine who it's easy to be friends with everybody in Western New York, right? Because, there's a lot of decision makers are my friends because I knew them when they were in high school. Right. And honestly, after about a year of just saying, hey, how's it going? Called me a few weeks ago and says, hey, can we get a proposal? That happens, but you need to be somebody who you can approach and say, I'm ready. I don't need you to sell me anything. I'm ready to buy something, and let's make it work. But that would never happen if it was just a cold call. It wouldn't happen. You need people to know who you are and what you do before that goes anywhere. I know I talked in a big circle there, but
no, that's how these roll. So we're right on target. That's how. Fun fact. I was intending these to be, 20, 30 minutes, that whole drive time thing. I've not made a single one under that, partially my fault because I talk. But Steve Colton and I did an episode. We shot it last week. It'll come out whenever, fill in the newspaper. We went 2 fucking hours.
Ugh.
It just went, and it became a thing where then he started asking me questions, like he was getting consulting, right? Like he's like, hey, well, what do you think about this? He starts taking notes for Encore.
Yeah.
And part of the reason you do these things is content, obviously.
Exactly.
And so at some point I'm like, no, I'm not going to ask someone who works with a great local business. Like, I'm not going to shut this down because, we're over time. I don't, nobody on earth probably is going to watch that for 2 hours, except for me pulling out clips and pulling out useful parts for other people.
Yeah.
I let these roll till we get the conversation that we're looking for, and then it's over.
Have you ever seen the recording of? Have you ever gone to New York and seen a recording of the Tonight Show or back in the day when it's Letterman or whatever?
No.
You know how they do those interviews?
Buffalo back in the day, but
it's kind of the same thing, except that's live. So those shows are taped, right? Obviously, and you'd be surprised at how much stuff is being cut out. There sometimes there's a conversation that goes on with somebody, and it takes 15, 20, 30 minutes, just shooting the breeze with people, and they put in commercial breaks and whatever, and then by the time it gets ready for air, they cut out half of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know that. I had the opportunity to see the Tonight Show filmed years ago. I used to work in New York a lot, and so the Tonight Show filmed, and I remember watching the taping and then going back to my hotel room to watch it on TV. It's like I was going to see myself or something. Like the camera just turned around for some reason. But and there was an interview with oh geez, I'm going to blank on his name. Played Jesse on Breaking Bad. I can't remember his name.
Oh, guy, I just watched an interview with him yesterday.
Aaron Paul. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
The guy that says bitch a lot.
That guy. Exactly. Got famous saying bitch.
And he was talking to Jimmy Fallon, and they just kept going on and on and on and on. And I went home or back to the hotel room, and I watched it, and it was like a third of it. And like they went to a commercial and they came back, and it was like 15 minutes later of the conversation, and then they went to like the musical act, which I think was like I don't know, the Black Keys. I should remember this. I'm really bad with bands.
Yeah, you don't remember any of it, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Powerful experience.
It did, but I remember that. I rember taking it, them just cutting a whole bunch out.
Yeah, I'm not gonna cut these down. I'm not gonna bother because I don't have a bunch of people watching it with the 20-minute sling. So I'm leaving it in, and we're just pulling content out. And while it makes for insanely large video files, we're just getting through that part as we go. My experience is you find the best stuff in the rambling conversations. They don't edit as easily. Yeah, but also I don't need the information just for video purposes, right? Like, I can take that and then condense that and put that thought out and see what people think about that. And then same with the people who are showing up. A lot of people who are coming on are also kind of content people or whatever you want to call it. And so like, cool, here, use some of this. But and Aaron Paul, by the way, I did confirm.
Good.
Paul. So
it sounded right coming out, but it felt wrong.
Yes. Aaron Paul, Ron Paul, Rand Paul. I'm not sure which one, but it was one of them. Yeah, I saw an interview with him a couple days ago on that Off Camera, the ironically named Off Camera show, right. Where they're getting interviewed on camera by someone who's just a little extra chill. He was talking about how desperate he was, and he was about to quit if he didn't get that role, and the director loved him and nobody else wanted him, and so the director just kept him just because he liked him. So there's that likability thing, right? So another connect there into the world of, and I was talking with Osberg on this yesterday, which the world will see tomorrow, that's sometimes and in some places, and I think Buffalo's a place, digital's great, content's great, blah, 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 blah. A lot of stuff boils down to the likability. Trust is important. But trust
is a piece of likability though. Like
it's a piece of it, and you can have professional trust, right? You can have like, okay, this dude knows what he's talking about. This woman knows her stuff, whatever it is. But then there's, do I like them? Do I want to have to engage with this person on a regular basis? And I had said something to John where it's like, and some of us are less likable than others, and so we have to overcompensate with value. So if you see me putting out content constantly, that's probably because after a while I can be a bit much, and so you gotta know your style and tweak your style, and I'm gonna have to be extra useful to overcompensate for the fucks and the swearing and the random stuff and like nails painted and every now and again, and like whatever I do that does not fit that normal thing, like I can compensate for that with value. So that's my
I like that.
Relational slows down, or for people, people who aren't my type aren't going to probably do much business with me because I'm in a service business and you're going to be stuck with me, and it's probably my ideas you're looking for.
Sure.
And you have to at least be able to tolerate the personality.
So one of the things that I'm lucky is I'm not the expert in my business. I sell the experts. But I need to know a little bit about what those experts are capable of when I sell the product. And I think one of the things that I found is that everybody has a likable quality to them. Just gotta, sometimes it's not right out front. It's not the first thing. yes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? But I can see through a bad first impression to what the person really is. And if I can't, then I guess it's too late. But I always try to find the best in everybody. I'm a benefit of the doubt guy. I'm a turn the other cheek guy. I don't know why, maybe because I'm just some sort of a pacifist, but I really think that what you said about compensate, I actually wrote this down, compensate with value. The fact that you're willing to say that, obviously, obviously you're being a little self-deprecating, of course. Yeah. But if you don't, there's people that try to get into sales and really don't know how to sell themselves necessarily. People come out and just, they read a script, or not that there's anything wrong with reading a script as long as you can read it and play the role that the script tells you you're supposed to play. But you need to be a certain type of person to be able to take no's and to deal with rejections and how to pivot and how to counter rejections and objections. But I think when all is said and done, if you can provide value in some way, not just the product you're selling, but provide value to somebody. Like if your first sales call doesn't go well with somebody, but you have a relationship with them now because you know them, and you hear that they're looking for a dog kennel or whatever. I don't know why I thought a dog kennel just now. I don't know if I heard a dog bark or maybe I'm just having.
In my background, dogs have started barking. Someone's getting home, so I've muted myself.
Okay, got it. But anyway, like if you know somebody needs something, or somebody likes a certain kind of thing, or is trying to find it, like I said, a dog kennel, and you say, I know somebody who owns a dog kennel, let me help you out. Like that's value unrelated to the product you're selling, but value doesn't necessarily have to be the product you're selling. There's all sorts of ways to provide value in a relationship, and I honestly think that that's how you develop relationships, is providing value to the person, listening to what their needs are, and providing value and providing the ability for them to trust you. Because that also builds trust. It builds up all that stuff in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I have plenty of people that I've pitched to and I've considered prospects that I've spent months and months just helping them with things completely unrelated to what I do. I'm not selling people HR. I'm telling people where the best place is to get a sandwich or a beer, or where you can really get a good taco. And I think I'm still providing value as a person, and that makes somebody trust me to eventually see the value in the product I'm selling, because they know that I'm not going to sell them bullshit. Right. And when it comes down to it, that's what really people want from a salesperson, is they want honesty, they want value. And value, you could take that different ways, but they want to pay something and get more back in return than they're paying for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then they want what they want, and you can't even know what that is unless you're listening and tuning in and then providing what's relevant, right? So, and when it's not HR, it's a taco joint or whatever it is. Yep. So which means you also have to stay present and be paying attention and listening and tuned in to the social piece, which is the closest thing that works in digital marketing in Buffalo, especially B2B, right? We're both in B2B, so that's a commonality there, is having the presence on that side of things to match and actually exceed in a lot of cases. Certainly lately, there's not a lot of live events happening, so there's not a lot of LinkedIn posts with, hey, here I am earlier this morning. Kind of took off about 50% of my posting. But that presence, because it reinforces actual relationships, which Buffalo is, for better or worse, it's a small town and it's more relational than is probably smart, right? More people buy based on relationship than probably should in cases, but that's just how we roll. So instead of sales funnels and automatic messaging cadences and all that kind of horse shit that maybe in a large enough market, right, you've got a big enough net, you can do that. I think it still sucks as a marketing person. I think it's still awful and terrible, but here you definitely can. Yeah. And I blow back on it, and I've talked about it on these things 100 times at this point. And I mean, Pelkey and I text back and forth as like a hobby when we get shitty cold messaging on LinkedIn or an email. Like we're always blowing that stuff up.
I save them all. Yeah. I save them all and I just share them with friends, and I say, listen, you want to know how I'm not going to sell you something?
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly. Yeah, how are you enjoying this today? Actually, I think Sean Capel was talking about, he texted me at one point, he said, hey, I'm thinking about putting together a whole Instagram like page that's just around that, right? Bad messaging Instagram page.
I
So
love it.
which I would, I don't know how you monetize that, but I would certainly subscribe. But yeah, there's that difference where in a market like this, you have to be known. People have to have a trust and like a personal, somewhat of a personal like towards you. And then you can use social to actually reinforce that, expand that. Like you're saying too, in non-traditional, not just directly sales related ways, right? Like help people with what they need.
Yep.
And then when they need something that you can specifically help with professionally, you're probably going to be the dude.
Yep, and so I've developed relationships, and I'm gonna give a shout out to my friend, and obviously you know him too, Clark Dever.
Yeah.
And who I called Clark Dever for a very long time.
Oh, cool.
And I've never said his last name before, and so like he says I'm Clark Dever, I'm like, yeah, you're definitely not Clark Dever, obviously. Nice to meet you. But I've known him for a few years, and we crossed paths over the course of the years when I did some volunteer work and some not-for-profit work and some other stuff. But I took some time just to hang out, get to know him, and one day I just sort of told him about how he actually asked me. He said, "What can you explain to me? Let's have a call. Explain to me what you do. Explain to me what your business is." And very few people do that, to ask me what my business is. I usually have to sort of call them and ask them to tell them what I do. But he said, tell me what your business is. And I sat down with him. I think it might've been a Zoom call actually. Cause it was like probably March, right around that time. And I talked to him. I said, here's what I do. Here's what my company does. Here's how my approach to it. Here's people that we worked with. Here's clients that we have. Here's things we've done in the past. Here's things that worked. Here's things that maybe didn't work. And that was it. And he said, awesome. Nice talking to you. This is really cool. We still stay in touch. We talk all the time. And about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he sent me two leads because he knew what it was I do. He knows that I care. He knows that I'm a decent person, and he also knows people that I've already worked with, and that we've provided with good service. And I've given proposals to these people, and I think it's all based on just the world and just people like Clark that are givers themselves, but also taking the time to talk about what you do, but also let people learn about who you are. I mean, over the course of time, he comes across somebody in his daily life. I'm not sure exactly how he got on the subject of needing HR support, right? But I got a message and checked all the boxes, right? This woman, she had needs in HR, she had needs in some compliance things, like literally everything that we do. And I just said, that's awesome. I'm glad Clark connected us. And I said, thank you to Clark. And of course I'm going to buy him a beer now or a coffee or whatever. I don't know enough about Clark to know what he drinks. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Yeah. But when it came down to it, it's because he took the time to get to know what I do, and understand what I do, and also get to know that you can trust me with one of his friends, and also knew what pain points to listen to and what the signals were to know when somebody could use a service like mine as opposed to something else.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think also that he knows what to listen for. He knew what to listen for. And he is also, right, a community oriented, value oriented person, versus someone else in your standard networking situation where you meet and you're waiting through their pitch so you can give yours. And then like, hey, who do you know that blah, blah, blah. And like, oh yeah, let me think. And then that's it, right? They're not going to think actually right then. They're not going to think about it later. But Clark actually gives a shit about, what he's thinking about and the people that are in his community. So he's listening for what people can provide so he can actually hook people up with it, which by itself, I believe is a differentiator between, him and not just him individually, right? But people like that and this whole the give first and all the kind of things that's that piece where like, yes, that kind of person will listen and then find some way to apply that valuably because they're looking for ways to give value to people. Exactly. If you're not looking for that, you're like, there's no point in having the conversation.
And it's okay to be selfish about that. And I think I talked to you in a podcast about this before.
Mhm.
It's okay to feel good about helping somebody else with something that doesn't relate to you.
Yeah.
Because in the end, somebody's going to need something that Clark can provide, or somebody else can provide, that brought me a referral. And I'm going to say, well, you know what? This guy deserves your business because he's also good at it. And it's really great to live in a community like Buffalo, where it's hard to be an asshole in Buffalo because everybody knows very, very quickly. And it's by the time you really kind of get in that category, it's too late. You got to move. And, or really do some sort of like an apology tour.
Right. Yeah.
Which I've seen some people that have pulled that off, that have come out of the gate and they're going completely in the wrong direction and got a bad rep real fast and had to sort of pivot. I hate pivot. You could edit that part out. Do a 180 or maybe even like a 45 at least.
Yeah.
Just sort of to push them. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I'm, give. I'll give until I have nothing left. Just because I'd rather be not making a sales quota than being an asshole who does.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Well, yes. In a town like this, that works out pretty well, as long as you've got the actual value, obviously. Yes. So, all right, bud. I think that we just cruised through that critical part of the conversation. So I think that's it. So thank you, number one, for the froth recommendation.
Absolutely.
I know the brewery, but this is tasty beer, and I'm a Hayburner guy, so I do live in some of the IPA land.
Hayburner is, from what I know, it's like among the best beers in Buffalo.
And their market penetration means that I can be outside the city and still get it, right? I can go to a Yellow Goose on my way to Franklinville to my dad's house, and I get in there and there's Hayburner in there, and I'm like, yes, thank you. I don't think they have Froth Liquid Lollipop, but who knows what the future holds.
They just opened a beer store down the store from me on Broadway in Lancaster, at Lancaster Depew border.
Nice.
And they don't have. I keep checking to see if they get Froth in there, because I'll pay a markup to not drive to Kenmore on a regular basis. But
and is Froth, are they distributing like that way? Because I know before they were just really selling it in house and they didn't have distro.
I think they're only selling it in house, but like these beer stores, I almost feel like, I'm not sure exactly how it works. Like they're just going and buying cases of beer and putting them in there and selling them.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure there's some legalities to that I don't understand, but. Even like Community Beer Works self-distributed for a long time. Oh yeah. So it works. I don't know if Froth's doing anything. I've never seen a Froth truck. So.
Yes. No. I've seen the van in their parking lot, so I know which one is them. But yeah, it's not labeled, and they're not out at parks,
right.
or events.
And it's all short runs. Most of the stuff they're doing is short runs of stuff. So they don't have enough to make sure. Yeah.
Mad scientist stuff. Well, either way, good choice, and we actually have different flavors, so we're totally having a different experience right now. But we've got the same can, so
love it.
That's very cool. And then thanks for coming on. Yay, Froth, and sharing the wisdom, bud. We'll talk soon.
Anytime, man. I'm always here for you.
All right. See you, Matt.
Take care, my friend.